Good morning. Lovely to see everybody. Lovely to practice again. And we are working with the wonderful poem, The Seven Delights. And I'm going to put today's verses in the chat. And then we can read them out loud together. So this is very much part of the great sufferings of samsara, sickness, old age, and death. It's what brought, when Buddha was Prince Siddhartha, what brought his attention to the great journey he went to freeing himself and having the teachings to free all sentient beings, being confronted with sickness, old age, and death, and then seeing the peace of a mendicant versus the suffering of sickness, old age, and death. So, when my body has succumbed to the attacks of painful illness, I do not count on medical relief, but take that very illness as a path, and by its power, remove the obscurations blocking me, and use it to encourage the qualities worthwhile. When illness rears its head, sheer delight. When it's time to leave this body, this illusory tangle, don't cause yourself anxiety and grief. The thing you should train in and clear up for yourself. There's no such thing as dying to be done. There's just clear light, the mother and clear light uniting, the mother and child clear light uniting. When mind forsakes the body, sheer delight. When the whole thing's just not working, everything unified against you, don't try to find some way to change it all. Here's the point to make your practice is reverse the way you see it. Don't try to make it stop or improve. Adverse conditions happen. When they do, it's delightful. They make a little song of sheer delight. So here we are, and we all cope in lots of different ways with illness, and we will be forced to cope with dying. And we certainly learn a lot from illness, but this goes so much further. It goes into sheer delight. And I just had to laugh when I was contemplating these verses because I'm not finding it sheer delight right now. And I think as Annie and Talanka can say as witnesses, when it's like time-sensitive deadlines, illness, and stress together, that is my total nemesis. And I went into complete overwhelm yesterday because all three were sort of at their top stress level. I thought I would talk about how do we understand this verse, because how we're experiencing it doesn't match the verse. And first I started thinking about Khenchen Rinpoche, Khenchen Koncho Gyaltsen, and His Holiness Drikung Chetsang Rinpoche. And I always find observing them tremendously beneficial. So quite some time ago, Khenchen Koncho Gyaltsen Rinpoche just walked away from all of his administrative responsibilities. He was the first Drikung Lama to come to the US, and he started, I don't know, the first 6 or 8 Drikung centers in the US. The head one was in Washington, D.C., but there was Florida, Chicago, bunches. And at a certain point, he said, okay, he had some sort of illness that didn't clear up. And he said, I'm just going to become a monk again. And just walked away. And of course, he wasn't irresponsible about it. There were capable junior monks in each of the centers who rose to responsibility to run them. But he started going on pilgrimage. And now he's back to a vibrant health and, teaching worldwide again. He has not gone back to taking responsibility for any centers. But he dived deeply into the illness when it wouldn't clear itself. And similarly, there was a certain point with His Holiness Chetsang Rinpoche where he was he had some sort of mysterious illness connected to insomnia. And, he has even more worldwide responsibilities, huge responsibilities. And, his schedule, I'm sure, is made several years in advance, and people count on him. And I would think he feels that people are counting on him. But he had this illness, and essentially, he had to go into privacy. I don't know what practices either of them did, but he had to go into a withdrawing from the world of teaching and his responsibilities. And it took about 2 years. And so thinking about this verse on illness, when my body has succumbed to the attacks of painful illness, I do not count on medical relief, but take that very illness as a path, and by its power, remove the obscurations blocking me, and use it to encourage the qualities worthwhile. When illness rears its head, sheer delight. There are some sections of real importance. So saying I do not count on medical relief doesn't mean we don't go for medical relief. It means that medical relief may not fix the problem. We're all subject to sickness, old age, and death. So there's a sense of course you go for medical help, but we're not counting on a cure, let's say. You're counting on the medicine to help you as best as it can, but more important is to take that illness as a path, and by its power, remove the obscurations blocking me. And what are we saying over and over again? The obscurations blocking me have to do the sense of the meanness. This is happening to me. And it made me realize relative to my own situation that I haven't taken the time to deal with the illness that I'm working with. I certainly haven't turned it into sheer delight right now. And I think it's difficult to be totally straightforward about one's own physical illness. But what I can say is, what I have to laugh about in terms of my life's journey is my name is Drolma. Drolma is green Tara, or compassionate activity, and my nature is activity. And throughout my life, I've been able to let's say, overcome huge obstacles. And this is my second cancer. So my first cancer, when I was in my 40s, that was easier to turn into sheer delight. The current cancer, the treatment was several years ago, and the treatment was, tiring and difficult at the time. But what comes after the treatment is 5 years of a really harsh drug, and the harsh drug has lots and lots of side effects. So I was talking to my doctor and saying, tell me again why I have to stay on this drug. And she goes, if you stay on this drug, there's a really good chance you won't get cancer again, and a really good chance you won't get any cancer. So this is, in the course of the last 2.5 years, this is the third drug that she's trying. Each one of the drugs has different side effects. And so we keep switching things around to see if we can find one with less side effects. But the current side effects are extreme fatigue and muscle pain. And so the muscle pain is manifesting on my feet, so it's hard to walk. So, all right, so all this is going on the day I have to move. And so wonderful, Annie and Talanko were helping me, and we had movers and everything. But it was like what I was describing the other day, and last Sunday. How does a yogi handle things? Like the image I get from words of my perfect teacher in the particular story, there's an earthquake, there's avalanche, there's rocks falling down, and everybody is running, and the yogi sits down to practice. And so I realize, off and on, I've been sitting down to practice, but now I really need to sit down and go deeply into practice to see how to work with how illness is different in your 70s than it is in your 40s. Because in your 70s, it brings up all the issues of aging and approaching death. In the 40s, it's, I'm going to conquer this, I'm going to be fine, I'm going to use everything I learned to help people. Still, there's a sense that we use everything we learn to help people, but in your 70s, it brings up all the issues of death and dying, and the vulnerabilities, the lack of physical capability and power. So I don't doubt that when I'm off this drug, energy will return and some strength will return. But it's difficult to see how to see illness as sheer delight. And so that's certainly one thing I will take into retreat with me. So that I'm going into a month of retreat, and I'm particularly going into a specific Vajrayana retreat that has a specific schedule, and we say accumulation, so numbers of mantras that have to be accomplished in that period of time. At the same time, you bring your whole self into retreat. And I haven't taken the time with this illness to face directly all of the obscurations that it's revealing. And so I'm looking forward to bringing them into practice. So it's not so different than the previous two verses, which is not applying an antidote, but looking directly at the obscuration as it arises. So for me, it would be looking at directly, what is it that old age and death presents that brings up, let's say, fear or anxiety. What is it about lack of physical strength and physical mobility? What are those things bringing up for me? And using them as a way to go deeper into non-self. And again, I want to stress the importance of retreat, because this kind of investigation does take time, and it takes repeated in-depth observation to move from managing, let's say, and accepting. You know, we can get to managing and accepting, but we want to get to sheer delight. Then what's really interesting is I can see, and I'm sure we all can see, that in the challenging portions of life, when there's a coming together of multiple difficulties, it's only going to be harder in the dying process. So the beauty of these verses is that it's structured in terms of difficulty. So first it's the view that it's, let me see, let's go back to it. All right, let's go back to the first view. When thoughts that there is something perceived in a perceiver lure my mind away and distract, I don't close my sense gateways to meditate without them, but plunge straight into their essential point. They're like clouds in the sky. There's this shimmer where they fly, thoughts that rise for me sheer delight. So somewhere in perceived in a perceiver, then we went through emotional difficulties, the kleshas. Then we went through, let's say, uncontrollable forces. All of the terrible weather issues that people are having in different parts of the country. In the case of what I'm experiencing, the shock of the mold and the rebuild at Liberation House. So that's, like a exterior force, a karmic force. Samsara rising from many directions that has us writhing in anguish. And then now, this week, we're at illness, and after illness comes the dying process. So they're all progressing, starting with the view and then progressing with layers of difficulty. But the penetration that's presented in the first verse is the practice for each of the subsequent verses. So how I will work with this is, as I'm going through the first week of calming my mind and going into deep, peaceful mind, as I'm starting the Vajrayana practice, anything that disturbs my mind will be an obstacle. So what I am personally experiencing has to be resolved within the retreat in order to accomplish the retreat. So clearly the inner response to the physical experience of all the medicines occurring as a preview of the aging process while I'm actually in the aging process. So it's previewing, the coming years, has to be looked at and faced. And in the resolution, when there is a complete resolution, then there is sheer delight. And we almost can feel the practice. This is a poem by Gotsangpa. We can feel his practice coming through in this wonderful poem, because he's presenting first the view and then life as we experience it in terms of increasing difficulty, going through facing death directly, and then concluding with when the whole thing's just not working, everything united against you, don't try to find some way to change it all. Here's the point: to make your practice reverse the way you see it. Don't try to make it stop or improve. So we might call making it stop or improve as hope and fear. We're both hoping it will stop, or if it won't stop, hoping it will improve, and very afraid that it won't. And so we can see how hope and fear is a continuous presence in all of the verses. And then concluding, adverse conditions happen. When they do, it's delightful. So in samsara, even if you have the easiest life in samsara, as Siddhartha did in the castle, because it's samsara, there will be sickness, old age, and death. Adverse conditions happen. When they do, it's delightful. How do we use the adverse conditions to free us, essentially, is what it's saying. And when it frees us, it's delightful. They make a little song of sheer delight. So it's as though each stage, as we understand it, each klesha that we conquer, each fear that we conquer, each filing away, rubbing away, making a clearer understanding of our direct experience of perceiver and perceived becoming less prominent and less dominant, so that perceiver and perceived becomes something we question, and as we question it becomes more illusory. Then all the adverse conditions have the opportunity to be sheer delight, because there's no perceiver or perceived in the adverse conditions. There is just the flow of samsara, and the delight of moving with. And I think it's lovely in Vajrayana, we have so many examples of figures that are called dancing. So dancing with adversity, as opposed to being overwhelmed by adversity or succumbing to adversity. And this quality of dancing with adversity, it reoccurs with more as long as we're in samsara. And each time it reoccurs to us, we have more wisdom to apply to it, if we take the time to apply the wisdom to it. And so all of this practice that we're doing and all that we're learning about the significance and importance of retreat is so that we learn in our own direct experience to penetrate the root, and the root being dualities, perceiver and perceived, as opposed to the clear light awareness. That moves through all of samsara. We just don't recognize it or see it. And as we get lighter and lighter and freer, our karma will still keep presenting adversity as long as we have the karma, and how we respond to the arising karma is up to us. It's up to us to find a way to take the time to work with it and to take the time to penetrate it. So I'm happy to go on retreat, particularly right now. I'm at the pretty much the midpoint of the harsh drug. So maybe by the end of the harsh drug, I'll be dancing, as opposed to, I would say, trying to cope or manage. Some days successfully and some days not successfully. But it is certainly what we are all going to be facing, old age and death. And for those of us who are over 70, you have to say you're in old age now. You may be in a really healthy old age, but we've crossed that border. We're in old age. So I encourage you to print out, I'll send it to Annie, this whole poem of the Seven Delights, because it is essentially a presentation of a samsaric journey in life, and a reminder that with our practice, it can be turned into sheer delight. And we keep watching, let's say, our great teachers and see, well, they're not immune to sickness and old age either. But how did they work with it? And we see in the example of His Holiness and Khenmo Rinpoche, that on the other side of pretty heavy-duty illness for them was tremendous power and tremendous teaching, years and years of strength. We don't know for any of us what's on the other side of our particular struggles or illness, but we know that if we work with it, we can reverse our view about it and find the sheer delight. So let's sit for 10 minutes or so, and then we have time for discussion. And returning, let's do a brief dedication for the online. Bodhicitta, excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher.